Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Stages podcast. We're going to call this one our season preview. Not the season preview, because we're not going to talk about, 45 weeks of endurance activity and things like that. But we're going to talk about the events that we're going to cover.
Yeah, we're going to kind of dig in and give you a list of what we intend to cover now. That could change, right? Let's be honest. And
well, some could be added, some could be taken away.
Yeah. And then it will let the controversy begin on why we're not covering this one or that one, as per people's requests. But let's dig right into that and kind of just start talking about what we plan to cover. And some we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. Like, I want to understand why some of these are important to you. Mm-hmm. Is that fair enough?
That's very fair.
Now, when I first started doing stages with you, you guys were all adamant that you were never going to do the 24-hour ride again, and yet you're doing that next month.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And here's what's crazy, JB, is like I trained, all of us, I think, actually trained so hard for that, or at least for us.
It's the Tour of Pueblo, by the way, or the
24 hours in the old Pueblo.
There you go.
The old Pueblo is really just somebody's ranch halfway between Phoenix and Tucson that's, in the middle of nowhere, covered with cacti. But thousands of people show up to do it, and then there's support crews, and it's called 24-hour town, right? And so it's like Burning Man meets Leadville meets Lollapalooza. And so we did this thing last year, all very well trained. Oh, the other cool thing is it starts with a Le Mans style start. So you, like at the Le Mans car race,
run.
I don't know if I guess they still do run for Le Mans. You run, I don't know how far they run in the car race, but in the 24-hour, you run probably 300 meters in your mountain bike shoes to your bike. And so...
What a horrible way to start a race.
Terrible. And, of course, last year they made me do it.
And you're trying to race to get to the single track, right?
It starts on a road.
Okay. You have some time
to... you have plenty of time. Starts on a fire road, you're fine. But it sucks running in mountain bike shoes. So, yeah, I have to do that again, at least to start. But none of us are in that good a shape now. And so it's...
Were you guys there to win it last year?
No.
Just for fun. Just getting the gang back together.
Yeah, the team who won was a four-man team of young mountain bike professionals.
Okay.
We couldn't have...
So there's some serious hardcore competitors there.
Yeah.
So it's George.
Me, George.
Dylan.
And
Casey,
Christian Vandeveld.
That's the team.
Same team as last year. We made up some cool kits last year, jerseys and bib shorts, through Hincapie that we sold that went like hotcakes. We only sold them for 2 weeks and cut it off. We're going to do that again. The kit will be different. And so, keep your eyes out for that. But it's a nutty scene, man, like riding in the middle of the night. And then like last year it started sleeting and snowing. And it was terrible. I love to sleep. I didn't get any sleep. I hated the middle of the night. I left swearing. I don't want to make it sound like it's that terrible because Todd.
Because you're signed up to do it again.
Well,
so
Todd
there must be
Sadow
something.
and his crew do an amazing job. All the events they do are amazing. But I was Miz, and I was like, I'm never coming back. And I told Sadow, I said, you see this face? Take a good look, because you're never going to see it again. And shit, here we are, signed up again.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to cover it. We'll be there. This whole crew you've come to know and love will be there, and we'll be slower. The cool thing is you don't have to keep riding. You can stop. You can just, like, if everybody's tired, it's like, yo, we're going to take a little break.
Oh, it's just the number of laps you do, right?
Yeah,
so you could.
You could ride one lap, start partying, go to bed, because it's from noon to noon.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could kind of get up at 8, bang out another lap, and be like, all right, we're good.
Did you sleep at all?
Yeah. Well, I rigged it. I had it rigged so that I got to sleep.
You went early?
No. So we went.
You timed out to where you could.
We did it. I had this math worked out so that there's 4 of us. So we went, and they're about hour laps. So I went first. So then I kind of rode again at like 4 or 5. And then I rode again at like 8 or 9. And I was like, let's go to 2 laps. So then I knew that there would be a 6-hour chunk. So I actually got like 5 hours of sleep. But I don't think the guys knew that I had it rigged up like that. But I'm proposing that we do that again.
And you're very talented at going to sleep on a moment's notice, right?
I can, if I see the pillow.
Yeah.
As the head is going down, I'm already asleep before the head hits the pillow.
Okay. And we're going to do a live Stages podcast from the event.
Well, we're gonna do it live to the audience,
right?
But we're in the middle of nowhere, so not live to you people. To
no coverage out there.
No.
All right, let's move on because this will be the first time for the Stages. If you are new to it, started at the tour in July. So the classics. First, I want you to talk a little bit about how important the classics are, because I think there's a large fan base that followed Tour de France and Tour de France only, and many may think that that was your specialty at the end of your career. But early on you did some of that, and my point is a lot of people just follow the tour and not so much the classics, right, especially in the U.S. audience.
Yeah. So
break that down a little bit.
Well, here's the difference, right? The tour is a 3-week race, so 20 however many stages, with 3 weeks, right? So that's a long stage race, Grand Tour. The classics are 1-day races, and so while a lot of these riders that do the classics will do the tour as support riders for their team leader, their GC leader, they're different styles of athletes, right? So as we go down this list, it's going to be hard not to pick Peter Sagan for like literally every one of them. But these are ones that he's literally could win every one potentially, but he'll never win the tour. So it's just a different. Although he'll be at the tour, he'll go for stage wins. He's there, goes for the green jersey. He's not winning the tour. But these events, I mean, for those guys like him, whether it's him or Cavendish or back in the day a Tom Boonen or a Johan Museeuw, I mean, these are the tour. I mean, a Belgian guy.
That's everything to them.
If he wins Tour Flanders,
is royalty forever.
Forever,
right?
No. He's royalty forever.
Right.
And keep in mind, a lot of these countries, Belgium, Holland, very small. So the chances that they go literally right in front of their doorstep is probably pretty good.
And then you always see the images. If you haven't watched a classic, I would encourage anybody to watch it, because you see the cobble sections, and it can be wet weather, it can be a muddy mess, and there's the race within the race to hit the cobble sections first.
Yeah. Well, just on the weather. April in Northern Europe. It could be sunny and 60. But it's highly unlikely. It's probably going to be in the 30s, low 40s, throw in some precipitation, some snow. That's the X factor. The wind, and there's always, we talk about cobbles and hills, but the wind in Northern Europe in the spring is deadly.
And you had some success at it earlier in your career, but you were a bigger rider then.
Yeah, early on in pre-cancer, I thought that was my sweet spot. So I and the team thought that was my sweet spot. So that's what I would focus on. I'd focus on typically the hillier ones, whether it's Liège-Bastogne-Liège or Flèche-Wallonne or Amstel Gold Race, even maybe a San Remo, although I wasn't punchy enough for that. And then even post-cancer, as I then shifted my focus to the tour, they're still important, right? It's my view that that a lot of these athletes that want to win the Grand Tours, whether it's the Giro, the Tour, or the Vuelta, should still do these races. They should still do them, because Milan-San Remo is, once you count in the neutral zone, is 300 kilometers. It's 190 miles. You're not going to go out and train. Nobody's going to go train 190 miles. So it's just a good day of training, relatively safe. The other thing that I would say is if the tour includes cobblestones, which is starting to do more and more, then you should do these races. You should do. It's
a skill set you need, right?
You don't necessarily have to do. The cobbles in the tour would be sections that they take from Paris-Roubaix. I wouldn't recommend that a Nairo Quintana go do Paris-Roubaix, and you don't have to do Tour of Flanders either, but you should find some of those other races in Northern Europe that are cobbled, because it's the dynamic of riding those things in the race, fighting for position, getting your team lined up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can only do in a race. And so...
So are these guys that are there to win one of the classics? That's their thing. I mean, they're trying to hit their peak fitness in March, April.
Yeah, no, they're doing these. They were in Australia. They did the tour down under. They're gonna be in Europe, and they're gonna do Valencia. Now they have to everything. If July is your focus, and then if the tour and July were your biggest focus, if you were a tour rider, say it really starts to matter April 1, April, May, June. Just shift it all the way. I mean, these guys, if March and April is your focus, then it goes which means, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Those boys are hitting it. Mm-hmm. There's no more. They can't just ease into those.
Well, I think everybody knows how you feel about the hierarchy of the Grand Tours. Mm-hmm. Is there a hierarchy in the classics, or is there great debate over which one's the most epic, the greatest one?
I don't know if there's a great debate, but people have pretty strong opinions about it. Look, most people, no, I don't know about most, but a lot of people think that Paris-Roubaix is the king of the classics. Yeah, I would argue, and I think I argued it or said it last summer, that the Tour of Flanders is actually, in my opinion, the king of the classics. Because if you consider Paris-Roubaix that's cobbled and flat, dead flat. I mean, the only hill are a couple overpasses. So flat cobbles. The other sort of monument there in the spring is Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which has no cobbles, but is super, super hilly. Very difficult race. Very small field at the end, if not just a solo rider. What if you combined the two? If you combined the two, you'd have Tour of Flanders. Because Flanders doesn't have the hills of Liège, but it has very, very difficult hills and climbs and et cetera, and it's cobbled. And those climbs are cobbled. So to me, it's a hybrid that makes it the Super Bowl of the spring.
And is Roubaix the only one, and maybe I have them wrong, with the stadium finish, the track finish?
The track, yeah.
Do riders love or hate that?
I've only finished on a track once before. I've never done Roubaix. And the only time I did finish on a track was the old Zurich Classic, which was a summer World Cup / Classic. We'd come in and finish on the velodrome. If you've never ridden a velodrome, then you're probably going to be uncomfortable. If you say you're in a group of 5 sprinting for the win and you've never been on a velodrome, you're in trouble.
The track guys got the advantage.
But the guys who are in Roubaix and think they're going to be at the front, either a lot of them came from the track as young kids, or they've spent some time on the track.
It's just pretty epic to watch on TV when that big crowd all the way around.
Yeah, and let me just before I forget, for the cycling fan out there, there's been a lot of talk and controversy over the Tour of Flanders, which I just spoke about, inviting me to be a featured guest, speaking at the gala the night before, being at the race. Wouter, the race owner, is a friend of mine, pretty passionate guy, pretty committed, clearly, invited me months and months and months ago. We've had long discussions about it. We met in Washington, D.C. A couple of months ago to have dinner. I think he wanted to look me in the eyes, like, what are you going to say, like, when you speak? You're just going to get up there and be like, what's up? And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that at all. He's like, okay, good. But
what was your answer? I mean,
you'll see April 1st.
Give us some hint.
Look, I think my answer is changing a little bit, and it's changing because of the controversy, right? So now we have a new president at the UCI, David Leparchien, a Frenchman, which doesn't matter where he's from, who's come out and said, by the way, for the record, Wouter, the owner of the race, told Leparchien before he announced, he said, just so you know, I'm inviting Armstrong to my race. And at that time, Leparchien, according to who I heard it from, said, look, I don't think it's a great idea, but I won't oppose it. And then, of course, now he does. But pretty strongly. And then his last message was that I will not attend the Tour of Flanders. But along the way, so we get into this thing, and what I want to do right now is I'm going to take myself out of it, because that'd be silly for me. I'm different than everybody else because I have a lifetime ban. So that does make my situation different. And then the others can decide if it's different or not. But so then what a guy like Leparchien does is he then goes and literally it's like he's throwing darts. And if it lands on black, he says, you're in. If it lands on red, he's like, nope, no place. So when he's throwing the darts, Alexander Vinokurov, oh yeah, he's fine. Throw the dart again, lands on black, it's Bjarne Riis or Michael Bogert. Nope, there's no place for them here. Right. And of course, I'm on black. Throw it again, Laurent Jalabert, red. Okay, you can come. Yeah. So that won't work. That won't work for the future of cycling. That's a toxic approach. And again, I'm taking myself out of it. So let me be on black forever. But you can't throw darts and figure out who's black or red, because people aren't stupid. People have memories. People have memories of Bjarne Riis. They have memories of Vino. They have memories of Jalabert. You can't take, and they can't reconcile that dart game. And so what I've said all along, which I guess would include me, is let's just sit down and have a conversation about this. Like, until there is, it's been battered around so much, until there's a true truth and reconciliation process, we're going to be throwing darts forever. And so, but that's a toxic place to be, and I don't think it allows the sport to put it all in a box, wrap it up, tape it up, and send it down the belt as it is. It's, yeah.
I know when you had the idea to recap the tour in July, you weren't sure how well it was going to be received, right? And we learned pretty quickly that there was a pretty vast audience that was enjoying this take on it. What do you think your reception is going to be going over to Flanders?
Physically.
Yeah, what goes through
being there actually in person.
Right. It's different.
You know, I don't know, JB, but I hope it's good. I always enjoyed a very good relationship with the people of Belgium. Again, a very small country. Most of my staff in the day were Belgian, Flemish, from the Flemish-speaking side. Our European headquarters was in Belgium. I loved it there. You know, it was easy to be there as an American. Everybody speaks English. You could go to the movies back in the day when we went to the movies over there, they were in English with subtitles. And so it was sort of like my second home abroad, and I hope it's good. They did some polls, that were positive. But that at the same time, you had the politicians who just, this is their moment,
right?
Right. But I don't really care what they say. And by the way, it doesn't really matter what anybody says. We're going, and if there's a negative episode or confrontation, that's I always say. I mean, I'm for the rest of my life, I'm prepared for that.
You can deal with it.
I can deal with that.
So the just following the media, which coming from media, it's always entertaining to me. It was like, Lance has been invited. Oh, he can't come. Flanders says, yeah, he's still coming. Like, this is still happening. That's where it's at today.
As we sit here today, this show is not going on out to the world today, but as it sits today, no, it's the Tour of Flanders. This is, look, we saw this last summer in Colorado,
right?
When the Colorado Classic asked us to come down and do this very thing in and around their race, which was super cool, and we were glad to do it. And the agencies, USADA, UCI, step in. Well, they know, and I'm not criticizing them. I'm just telling you exactly what they were thinking, because I pretty much know. They knew they could strong arm them. First year event, at the mercy of the federation. Sanctioning means everything to them.
I see the difference.
And look at now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, that would be like comparing my son's flag football league to the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's very difficult to come in and say, we're not going to let you have the Tour of Flanders.
Right. It's too iconic. Too
having said that,
powerful.
we sit here today. That's not the situation, not the case. But my guess is there are plenty of people in Colorado Springs and Lausanne trying to figure out a way to make that happen. And we'll just have to see. Look, as of now, that's not going to happen. As of now, I'm excited to go. And as of now, Walter, the race owner, is excited to have me. And
one last thing on that, and then we'll move on from the classics. Like when he invited you to come to Flanders and be a guest of honor of sorts and a speaker, what went through your head? Were you like, holy shit? Or were you like, I know this is a tough question.
Yeah, I was honored. I was humbled. I was a little surprised. I was not really sure what I planned on saying. And then I also was like, I thought I was done with jet lag. Hey, before we move on from that, I think on some of these classics, just like a little 60-second on each of them, just because I think they're all so unique. And for the listener that's, I don't know what you guys are into, you guys or gals are into, but if you're into like some details of these races, then let's just give it 60 seconds on each one. Flanders, we don't need. We gave Flanders and Roubaix, we kind of covered. Milan-San Remo, I touched on super long. Weather can also be a factor, but can also be nice. Ends right on the Med, right in San Remo, Italy, right on the coast. It's an interesting race, man. It is board flat for 80 miles. I mean, dead flat. And then you have one climb, and shit, I'm forgetting the name of that climb. It's been in the race forever. That you climb up and it drops you down, and then you're on the coast. And then really the race starts. Like all that stuff before, they're just kind of going along.
Right.
That's when the race starts. And that, although it's not, there are climbs along the way, they're not that difficult. In fact, none of them are that. If you went and climbed them as one-offs, you'd be like, oh, this is a joke. But as the race starts to get to, as I said, it's 190 miles. As you start to get over 150, into 160, into 170, and for you people who do kilometers, sorry, you can figure it out. Those little bumps just get harder and harder. The coastline's super twisty. If it's raining, those Italian roads are sketchy. I said I was going to do 60 seconds. I did more. But there's a lot of fans, tons of fans along the coast, especially if it's a nice day. That always plays a factor. Some dude stands out with his dog out in the middle, So it's and then it comes down to the Poggio and the Cipressa, or is it the Cipressa and the Poggio? I should know all this stuff. And it's in the day you could get away on the last climb on the Poggio, but now almost always there's 40, 50 guys coming to the line.
Okay.
And then we got, just like we have Liège-Bastogne-Liège, a race that in the French-speaking part of Belgium, so very, very different. A country super divided. And just so you know, too, most Belgian professionals come from the Flemish side. Very few come from the French-speaking side. And but this race, again, been around for 100 years plus. Very, very difficult, very long, 160 plus miles. No telling what the total vert is for the day because it's never flat. Weather, it can snow, it can rain, it's miserable. And then I think I have these flipped as well, but Amstel Gold Race is in Holland, right? Which is a nutty race, a race that I nearly won several times, and one that I always wanted to win. I love, same like Belgium, I enjoyed a great relationship with the Dutch. Very similar to me, the Amstel Gold Race is like a paved version of the Tour of Flanders. So short, punchy, Austin-style hills, but not cobbled.
Okay. All right. Any other classics?
Well, there's one between Amstel and Liège. You have Flèche-Wallonne, a race that I actually did win in 1996. Finishes on the Mur de Huy that you do twice. So you do it like 2/3 through the race, I think, and then you come back. You go do another loop, and you come back, and it finishes on top of it. And it's a mile straight up, and the finish line is at the top.
And isn't that how divided are those races with that one in the middle? Is it?
You go Sunday, Wednesday, Sunday.
Wow, with the most epic days on a bike through.
Yeah.
How many people
tough
do
to
all
stack?
three?
Yeah, tough to stack. To think that you could try to win all three, although that style of rider wins those races, but for a rider to do that, it would be very difficult. I mean, you could skip Flèche in the middle of the week, Flèche-Wallonne, and win Amstel and Liège, but I don't think you could
Just not enough recovery time.
I mean, not no, never mind.
All right. So there's something new for 2018. Cover these classics. Also, what would be new would be the Tour of California.
Yep. In May.
And what is it you love about it? I mean, because there's so many races you could choose to cover. There's a lot of the 1 week European races getting ready for the Grand Tours, but because you want to grow U.S. cycling.
No, it's important. It's important that we cover American events. I mean, if we ignored the Tour of California in May or the Colorado Classic in August, we'd be doing a disservice to the sport here in the U.S., which, it's not on the stablest of ground, but it's still there. I mean, I'm frankly surprised that the Tour of California is still going on. It's lost a lot of its luster for a variety of reasons, but Phil Anschutz, who owns AEG, which puts on a bunch of sporting events and entertainment events and festivals and
they're huge.
Coachella, huge.
Yeah.
He continues to support it. And so, they've got a title sponsor in Amgen. They probably have a bunch of other subtitle sponsors. And and by the way too, it's in California. Like we're not riding around Missouri. I mean, it's no offense to people that live in Missouri, but it's gorgeous.
Okay.
Weather can be a factor there too.
And another thing that could be a factor is the timing of the Tour of California.
Can you turn off that AC, Higgs? Yeah, unfortunately, so as a lot of y'all probably know, I have this.
This is good to address because I think people want to know the timing of all of.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an update. And if you live in the DC area, you'll want to know this too because I'm coming for you. So Floyd Landis and the United States Postal Service sued me in 2000 and probably filed it in 2012, and when it came public in 2013, it's called a key tam case, a whistleblower case. Been going for a long time, and there's been delays and starts and stops and stalls, and was supposed to go to trial last November. One of my lawyers had to have fairly significant, actually very serious open heart surgery. He's back, healthy, rocking, in trial as we speak. And so it got postponed to May. So there is a chance, in fact, there's a very high likelihood that I will be in Washington, D.C. the entire month of May, because this will be probably a 4-week trial.
Wow.
Yep. And we don't know yet if it's Monday, if the week is set up so that it's Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday. We don't know yet. The judge will decide. That's up to him to decide. It's a federal civil case. They want $100 million. We can't settle the case. I think also, I don't know who decides. It's probably 8 people on the jury with a couple alternates. So if you looked at the jury, you'd probably see 10 or 11 people there. Yeah. And, this is a big one. And
do they know for certain going in that it's going to take 4 weeks?
I think no, they don't know. It doesn't have to. I mean,
right.
if
their estimate, that's an estimate that
that's an estimate. Okay. I think I guess if they think of the stakes, they think of the fact that it's a federal case, the fact that there's other things that they can go off of but it's 3 or 4 weeks, which is a long time. Let me put it this way. I will not be staying in a hotel.
Right.
So it's a long time when you go rent a house.
Right.
So what I'm saying, to people in DC is I will have to quote unquote go to work every day in the courthouse and sit there, but we're going to be active. Mm-hmm. Any hour I have outside of being in that courtroom, whether it's an early morning master swim, wherever it is in the district, or an evening run around all the monuments, this is your call to action, and we're going to have big pop-ups, big group sessions. I don't know so much about riding because I think the riding's a little tougher in the DC area. I will have my bike there, but if y'all want to,
you're showing up with a moving truck.
Yeah, I'm not showing up with a moving truck, but what I am going to do is every day I'm going to suffer.
Okay,
I'm going to suffer. I'll probably suffer in the courtroom too.
So
but
this is probably a dumb question then. I mean, the Tour of California coincides with this trial.
Yeah.
So covering it...
You'd be out there by yourself.
That would be a bad idea.
Jimmy's, you're like calling the sprinter to win the uphill finish, the mountain finish. Whoa, whoops. I could call in and be like, "Yo, dude, no, that's not going to happen."
A cycling podcast recapping daily without the expert is a bad idea.
Yeah. Then we will have to take a pass.
Okay.
And to be honest with you and everybody else listening, this case can't be settled.
Right. Okay. Wow. Interesting. I didn't know that. Then we move on to what kicked this all off, covering the Tour de France in July.
Yeah.
We got that dialed in.
We have, we got that figured out. We have our landlord in Pam Alexander, I think. I mean, I haven't heard otherwise, but we got the Airstream. We were pinging these Airstream people to try to hook us up with some, we thought we needed like a new studio. Maybe we don't. But otherwise, you'd be driving up there again in early. What would we say? No, it's the event.
It starts the second week this year.
Yeah, it starts later to not conflict too much with the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and we went into the blow by blow from the tour. I haven't changed any of my thoughts or opinions about the route that they selected. I think it's fucking amazing. Like as a fan, as a spectator, as a viewer, you just awesome.
And you can go back on the Stages podcast if you missed it and listen to the preview when they announced the route. Yep. So we kind of already covered that, so there's no need to go into that.
That's all sitting there. One thing I did forget, and I was just reminded about. I can't talk too much about it because it's whenever we put this up, this will not have come out yet. But there is a. Let me be very vague about this. There is a very prominent. How do I say this? Mark, you can tell me if we're going to take this out, but there is a very prominent company in cycling, very influential, that is very invested in the sport on the professional side, both men and women, all disciplines, track, cyclocross, mountain bike, et cetera, that thinks that the sport can be run and managed and promoted differently. So they set out, and they took a year and a half to do this, to basically write a thesis or like a case study. I don't know, I never call it, whatever you call it, that's like 30,000 words on how the sport can be better. Not just for the athletes, obviously, they talk about that, for the fans, for all the stakeholders, the athletes, the teams, the governing bodies, the media, et cetera, and we're going to do an episode about that. I won't tell you who it is. I won't tell you what it says. Very interesting ideas. A gentleman from said company sat at that seat very recently, and we spent an hour talking about their findings.
Well, and that happens in other sports. In fact, you touched on it with your Dale Jr. interview, where they made some changes to the sport, oddly enough, calling them stages during the race.
Yeah.
To help for the fans.
Yeah.
It's like, how can it be better for the fans? And
I'm a fan and I got more confused. So
it was confusing, but it happens in football too. They make a rule change. Like, what do the fans want?
Yeah. The best part of that podcast was we were talking about, well, there was a lot of good parts, but we was talking about the yellow flags, and he's like, too many yells, man. As he just back in the day, just left that stuff. We just drove over that shit. I think it'd be like a lug nut out there, just go drive over it. Now,
it's a great interview, by the way. That's on the forward if you want to listen to the Dale Jr. But you touch on that. It's not uncommon to sit down and do an analysis of a sport, tweak it better for the athletes, the fans, the experience, keep it popular, make it more popular.
Well, to poke at your curiosity even more, I'm telling you, the proposed plan by said company is revolutionary.
And you liked what you heard?
I really liked what I heard. And they know this, I'm skeptical that a lot of this can be pulled off. I mean, this is a sport. All of this that we were talking about today and we've ever talked about when it comes to cycling is so embedded. The tradition is there, the calendar's there, the people. It's so hard to change this sport. It's very, very difficult.
Okay. Then we move on to what was controversial for a short time last year, the Colorado Classic. Yeah. We're going to cover that again. It's already been announced that they've set the dates.
Yeah.
And it's
So what
going
they're
to
not
happen.
going, they're not going to Breckenridge. They're going to go to Vail, I believe. So the 2 days instead of those days in Breck, I think they go to Vail now.
And they probably looked at what happened last year, trying to get the aerial coverage in the mountains.
Did they address that?
No,
I know you know more than I do. I'm like, what?
I when they announced it, I just read that
They're crazy if they don't. If they don't change, if they don't race in the morning, they're crazy. We will be watching.
You were very outspoken on that last year because we couldn't get the coverage.
No, we'll be watching static finish line shots.
Yeah.
Like,
they're going to have to do something.
It's Colorado in August. It rains.
It's stormy. What happened to us last year is we're watching the feed like anybody doing commentary would, and the planes couldn't fly at that altitude with bad weather, period. Right. So hopefully they'll address that again, but we'll be there, I'm guessing, in an unofficial capacity.
Yeah, we'll be unofficial.
We'll
be rogue. But let's rent that same house. That was a dope house we stayed in.
That was very cool.
That was so dope. But thank God for TJ Eisenhart going balls deep and then coming.
We got to have him back.
Oh yeah, he'll come back.
Well, we got to have him.
Have I showed you my ball? Well, he made all these shirts. He makes everything now balls deep. After that day, it's a full merch plan. So they've got the balls deep tees,
the necklaces,
the stickers, the brace, everything, everything balls deep. But he sent me a customized balls deep T-shirt where and it's BALLZ. Mm-hmm. But on my Z, it's got a little line, or it's got like a little Ghostbusters thing, like with a line through it. So it just says ball deep.
So Colorado Classic in August.
Yeah.
And then we're going to cover Ironman again. I enjoyed that.
In October, yeah. That's because you didn't do it.
That's right. So we ended up doing, I liked what we did last year. We spent a day talking to Mark Allen and one talking to Dave Scott, a preview and a post. We can probably have some other guests that are experts in that area.
Yeah, and for the triathletes listening, even if you're not thinking about Kona or not going to go to Kona this year, but you want to do an Ironman or even a half Ironman, you should watch them or listen to those shows because Mark and Dave clearly know what they're talking about, have experience, and just the super simple to-dos, the checklist, the what to do, what not to do, just the things to know, whether it's specific to Kona or not, but hydration, nutrition, pacing, heat, etc. There's just a lot of stuff for anybody. You could be doing. I don't care if you're doing Ironman, South Africa, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's important. So go back and check those out.
And I didn't hear any rumblings of Costa Rica until I got here today.
Yeah,
what is that?
Pura Vida. So there's a race that, and this has maybe this may actually be the announcement. Higgs, we should make that video for them before this goes out. Okay? We got to make a video where I say, hey, coming down, can't wait, which is true. True that I have to make the video, but also true that I'm excited.
Okay.
And so this is no telling. I mean, people are just going to light their heads. If they're mad about Flanders, then yet another, invitation. But this is a race that's been going on. I think last year was its 25th anniversary. They asked me to come down last year for that, that milestone. It's right in the middle of Luke's football season, so I couldn't make it happen. I didn't want to leave and miss a game. So we're going back. So it's been around for 26 years. It goes from one side of I've never been to Costa Rica. It goes from one coast all the way across the country to the other coast. But apparently, like, the shit is supposed to be, like, terrible. Like, the hardest 3 days you can ever imagine. La Ruta de Conquistadores. And so I say I'm excited. I'm sitting here in the spring. Might be a little different when I get down there and not having trained.
Well, that's late in the year.
I'll be ready. No, you have to. It's hard enough that you.
Oh, wait. Let's not gloss over that. This is not just to cover it. You are doing this.
No, I'm right. I'm like the featured rider.
Okay.
It's not sanctioned.
Okay. Somehow I missed that part.
No, yeah, I'm in the bike race.
Oh, because it's not sanctioned.
I should say
you can get into it.
I should just say I'm participating.
You're participating.
I mean, these guys.
Okay.
They get some of the best mountain bikers in the world now, and the locals, the domestic guys from Costa Rica, are insane. And obviously, they know the trails, and there's a lot of dirt road, a lot of clay. Like apparently the clay. You're ridden in clay, like wet clay.
No,
forget it. You can't ride. So it gets into everything.
But your competitive nature.
Yeah, but it's not. I'm done.
You're not just gonna coast it.
I am.
Oh, come on.
Pura vida. That's what they say down there. They got all these monkeys. They have monkeys everywhere. They have alligators. I'm serious. They have alligators. I've seen pictures. They ride on
Which do you fear more,
they
the
ride-
alligators
check
or
this.
the monkeys?
No. I think the monkeys are nice. I fear more the mosquitoes. I'm not really worried about. I hate mosquitoes. I'm not worried about alligators. I can know to stay away from that. But mosquitoes, they come to you. But they check this. They ride on railroad tracks at times. So not like across the railroad track like you normally do.
Right.
Like straight down the middle.
Just
like boom.
Wow.
Like
Wow.
dude.
Awesome.
So
This will be great.
Yeah, it's
And if that isn't bizarre enough,
Roman and his sister, actually Roman and his sister and his brother, they put on the event for 26 years. Roman is in the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame. Legendary dude, came and did the Aspen 50 last summer or last September. What a sweetheart. Total sweetheart of a guy. Oh, and he signed up for the Texas 100.
there you go.
Yeah.
Like what I was starting to say is if alligators and clay and monkeys isn't bizarre enough, can you also talk about what you're doing in November? You're going to be dialed in with fitness because you're going to be running a lot too.
Yeah. So, and by the time we put this up, we will have put up. Will we have put up Chris Redlitz by then, Higgs? Possibly. Potentially, we put up a podcast that I did with a guy by the name of Chris Redlitz, who's a successful venture capitalist in San Francisco. Long story short, many years ago, he got invited to give a talk at San Quentin, the state prison, right there, right across the bay, the only death row prison in California. He was skeptical to go. Nonetheless, he went. He was impressed with what they were trying to teach these inmates. They were trying to teach them. It was basically a business class. So these guys, while they're in prison, they can learn woodworking. They can learn, how to, a lot of other trades. They're all getting out. By the way, unless they're on death row, they're all getting out.
Okay.
They're all getting out. We can't build enough prison and hold enough people. They all get out. And so they like to offer these inmates opportunities to learn. So he went, and this was a business class. He was impressed. He left inspired and touched by their commitment to learning. And he created a nonprofit called The Last Mile. And The Last Mile basically has built classrooms and workshops and all the infrastructure in San Quentin, and now 7 or 8 other prisons around the country where they teach these prisoners. And I'm not talking about petty thefts. I'm talking stone cold murderers. So they're teaching these guys to code, and you have to be a model inmate to get into the class. You can, and while you're in, obviously you cannot mess up. And messing up in federal prison is if you take orange juice back to your cell, or it's small. That's an infraction. Wow. But you have to have a perfect record to get into the coding program at San Quentin that The Last Mile does. So they asked me to come just recently asked me to come speak to the class. I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. And so I went in, there's about 60 of them learning to code. I can see why Chris Redlitz did what he did, because I was so inspired when I left. And,
what did you say to them?
Here's what I told them. I said, look, guys, I never killed anybody. I never raped anybody. I never did anything like that, but I did a lot of other bad shit, and I got a life sentence. And so I know what it's like to be given a life sentence. I'm not in here with you guys, but I've been given a life sentence. So I've had to figure out a way to move forward with my life. So here we are sitting here right now, other things, a new business, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't know what I was going to say to them. That's kind of the best thing I could come up with. And then we just sort of jammed for an hour, and they had a ton of questions. And
were they fans? I know that's a tough thing to gauge.
Yeah,
but
there's yeah.
Where they weren't like, who is this guy?
No, God, no. No. By the way, a year ago, Mark Zuckerberg went in and spoke to the class.
Oh, wow.
So Redlitz is getting, not only is he expanding this program around the country, just opened up Indiana, but he's getting guys to come in, first of all, I don't know what coding is, right? I know how to turn on my computer and like turn it off.
Right.
So, but guys like Zuck, they're legit tech guys. And so when I was there and I was talking to the boys, somehow it came up, their daily activity, what they get to do, because the yard is in the middle of, you can go on Google Earth and look at San Quentin, it's fascinating. The yard is right there in the middle, and so somehow it came up, it's like, oh, we have a marathon. One of the guys says, so when is it? He said, it's November. I said, okay. I said, what was the winning time last year? And he said, 3:17. And I said, I'll beat him by 20 minutes. So it's 105 laps around the prison yard. When you're in the yard, there's 2 lines, basically the width of a sidewalk, green lines that are painted around the entire yard. So you have to stay inside those lines for 105 laps.
When you first brought this up, I was like, because everyone's heard of like the Alcatraz Swim. Is this a novelty thing? And it's like, no.
No, outsiders don't do this.
These are the prisoners.
23 prisoners ran it last November.
Who train and work at it and are competitive.
Look, the yard is, they get to go in the yard quite a lot. It's foggy in those, if it's foggy and you can't, there's like a little, there's little rules. Out in the bay, if they can't see the first set of buoys because of the fog, nobody can leave their cell. The second they see the first buoy, then the prison opens. And these guys, they're out in the yard. They can play badminton. The Clippers, the Golden State Warriors go out and hoop with the guys. They have a basketball court. They got a tennis court. They got a baseball diamond. They have, I did pull-ups with the boys in the yard. And so look, because we're going to get, inevitably.
This is interesting.
Yeah, inevitably you get shit for this. But because these guys did real crimes.
Right.
They took people's lives. Some of them took more than one person's life. And there are a lot of people that'll say, how could you support that? Support these guys getting out. And by the way, when they get out and they've learned to code, this is not like they get to say, okay, I know how to code. They're getting real jobs. Mm-hmm. They're going to work for the biggest tech companies in the Bay Area making real money. And by the way, too, speaking of money, the highest paying job in San Quentin is, I think, in the guys who make the license plates, they make $1 an hour. The coders in the last mile in prison, because they work for people outside of the prison. Mm-hmm. They don't have the internet, but they have their own sort of intraweb that they can work. They make $17 an hour. So guess, these guys, they could be this tall. Guess who the most powerful man in San Quentin is? He's in that class because he makes $17 an hour.
Wow.
But when they get out, they get these legit jobs. And so for the person to say, how could you support them getting out and getting a high-paying job? Here's some stats. First stat I already told you, they're all getting out anyways. Number 2, the ones that are in, that get out, that never got any sort of formal training, 60+% of them turn right back around and go back in. Mm-hmm. The last mile, been around 7 or 8 years. These guys get out, 0% of them go back. So if they're getting out and they've atoned for their sins, you got to train them. It's in our benefit for them to return as productive citizens to their community, to their family, to their city. And so, as I said, I had Chris Redlitz on and Chris Schumacher on. One of a young man, he's not young anymore, but he spent 20 years, stabbed a guy in Los Angeles, drug deal gone bad, but learned to code, lives in the city, has a great job, super fit, runs all the time. It's on Strava. Had those 2 guys on talking about it. And the thing about Schumacher, anybody that comes out of, first of all, anybody in San Quentin, if you walk up to them and say, what'd you do to get here? They will all tell you. None of them will say, I don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. They'll all tell you.
That's all amazing. And it sounds like every prison in America can learn from it about reforming people. But I'm still trying to get my brain around this. In November, it will be prisoners running their annual marathon.
Yep.
And you.
And me.
If
we can see the first buoy. If we can't see the buoy, the yard's on lockdown. I mean, maybe the next day. But yeah, I'll be there with 20 plus convicted killers.
Has any other outsider ever run the marathon?
No.
With them?
There's an event that Runner's World wrote about a year ago, a major prison in Portland that has a marathon, that they do let outsiders in. Very few people get to go in and run. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't know. I don't think anybody's run with the prisoners.
That's
and by the way, part whatever, the yard's open. So there are 4,000 inmates in that prison.
And you guys are just running the perimeter.
Yeah, but I got the cheering. I got my boys lined up. They're, to cheer. And here's another crazy. This will blow you away. But for you, endurance people, which we all are. So I asked Chris Schumacher, who had run the marathon when he was in, like, did they have like aid stations for you guys? Like, do they have?
Right.
He's like, no. They put out a pitcher of water, maybe some cups. And so most people who want to do a marathon or have done one know you need hydration, but you also need some sort of fuel. So they'll have gels.
Yeah.
So he was taking, this is crazy. So for his form of sugar, fuel, when he would get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the cafeteria, he would separate it, eat the peanut butter side, and then scrape off the jelly and save that. So he had like a little thing of jelly that he had taken weeks of just like scraping off.
Making
his own gel.
Saving up for race day. Do they have proper running shoes?
They have issued. No, it's you ever remember the shoe company called Avia or Avia? Avia? You remember that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I was sponsored by them when I was a young kid, but that is the most common shoe I saw there. I mean, there must be some deal that's what they get.
So they've got decent shoes.
You should have to run in those.
Mark, I think it's time for you to turn around and pay attention to the Mevo, who's looking who, but
they don't have. I mean,
I don't know if they were on shorts or what, but we're going, and we're gonna, and it's going to be a Stages episode.
I thought you were shitting me when you said that they have a marathon and you were invited to do it. And as I looked up a story that was written about it, some of the parts of the course are like 90-degree turns.
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
it's
like
tight.
It's not like a sweeping track.
Okay, yeah. Look. Here's no. It's not a no.
Which
it's
is not.
It's not gonna be easy. I mean, if you think about it, with tight turn, the 317 staying in the lines is picking them up and putting them down. But here's the hardest part of the whole thing. Who counts? Like, you got to count yourself. I'll never. I would just for sure lose count. Wait, was I on 62 or is it 63?
Yeah, there's no official. It's anonymous.
No,
right?
There's going to be people walking, so you're going to be lapping people. There's no way for them to. There's not a chip. They don't have the timing chip.
Wow.
So I think I'm going to have to get one of those little clickers, like if you have at the door when you're
at
like
the club.
Yeah, that's the only way I'm going to be able to keep count. This is a real problem.
Wow. I'm just fascinated by that. I mean, it's just and that's the last thing we're going to talk about for the year. And some things are subject to change. There may be some one-off controversies here or there that we might tackle,
right,
like we did, the Froome episode that you and Dylan
Well, it's hopefully it's some. Speaking of that, I mean, at some point there, you hope for him and his team and the entire sport and fans of the sport and et cetera. It doesn't matter what side you're on. I mean, there needs to be a resolution. I mean, that thing has continued to go on, and it, and then my old friend Leparchian chimes in. This is bad for the sport. The team should volunteer to suspend him, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, it just, ugh. But yeah, there is going to be a resolution. Yeah. We should talk about it.
Okay.
I'm assuming that you all would want to hear us talk about. I think we keep Dylan off that show. He's not made for TV.
No, I'm made for TV.
Well, you have a face made for radio.
Cool. And among all of this as well, there's a couple of We Do rides. There's the Texas 100.
Texas 100 moved
Coming
up
up
to April.
in mid-April. If you want to check that out, come down to Central Texas and ride with
gorgeous.
us. And,
It's gorgeous.
And then in the fall, there's the Aspen 50 mountain bike ride.
So
if
mid-September.
That interests you.
Yeah,
That's going to be 2018.
that's it. And then
Yeah.
that's a good 50 days of stuff.
And we'll take your comments. And I know people are going to want to beg to come do this or that event. Or why are you covering that? I don't know. It's interesting to read your opinions. You can always send that to stages@wedo.team.